I'm Essence Wilson. I'm co-founder and chief strategy officer here at Communities First. And I want to welcome you to The Gathering. Yes. So about 2 years ago, one of our volunteers, Tracy Kim, came to us and said, hey, we should do something for Women's History Month. And when the idea has blossomed over the course of the last 2 years, last year we had our first gathering. If you were here, please raise your hands. Woo, woo! We're gonna have to have a first year, second year prize for folks. But this has been a labor of love for sure. We've had some intense, honest conversations over the last 2 years that have brought us to this place so that we can share with you. So this year we're gonna build on what we did last year, and today's theme is around the idea of it's time to show up. You will be encouraged to show up for yourself through acts of self-care and to learn ways to show up for others in your lives, particularly your fellow sisters. The National Women's History Alliance selects every year a theme for Women's History Month. And this year it is Moving Forward Together, Women Educating and Inspiring Generations. So we're gonna lean into that a little bit and have a conversation about women supporting one another in different phases and stages of their lives. On your table, you will notice that you have a mirror. Not getting too close to the speaker. You'll notice that you have a mirror. You don't have to do anything with it. It's just a little gift from us. But as we were preparing, I was reminded of how often we pass by mirrors in our lives and we never actually see ourselves. We look at ourselves without seeing ourselves. In the morning when we get ready, and I do this too, we focus on brushing our teeth, so you're looking at your teeth. You're focused on putting your makeup on, so you're looking at your face to make sure that you don't have any spots or blemishes and you're covering everything. But we don't take the time to recognize the internal and external beauty and power that exists in each of us. So today you have permission to see yourself, your whole self, and to love you for you. In addition to a mirror, I want you to also lean into the idea of a magnifying glass. So usually with a magnifying glass, you're looking at something and you're looking for faults and flaws when you're looking at other people. But today we're gonna use it as a tool, metaphorically, because you don't have one, I didn't give everybody one, to see more clearly and to illuminate the similarities that exist amongst us. There's so much in our society that would be used to divide us, but our examination of self and others can also help to unite. So if you're looking for the restrooms, if you haven't found them yet, they're out these doors and to the left. Volunteers can help you to locate them. We're going to open up with a dynamic and inspiring panel. And when you came in, you had a chance to sign up for breakout sessions and of most interest to you. So hopefully you got your little dots, and there are corresponding dots on the breakout rooms to help guide you to where you're going to go. So we're gonna have our first breakout after the panel, then we'll have lunch and you'll have a chance to talk at your table with some others, and that's gonna be facilitated by one of our committee members. And be sure to include somebody that you don't know in that conversation. You can always talk to the people that you know. You got those phone numbers. You know where to find them. But talk to somebody you don't know. And after lunch, you'll have your second breakout session, and then we'll return to this room for our wrap-up and some closing comments. It's going to be an action-packed, fast-paced, amazing day, and I want you all to feel free to participate fully, to feel welcome, and to have a good time with this experience, because we certainly did last year, and this year is even better. So I'm going to introduce to you Tracy Kim, who is my co-moderator for this panel. And Tracy has a few words of welcome as well, and then we're gonna dive right in. And I'm gonna ask each of you, as you're answering your first question, to introduce yourselves. Because I know what we would say about you, and if you go on our Facebook page, there's write-ups about each of our panelists, but I wanna hear what you have to say about yourself. Who are you, and who are you showing up as today? Because if I know nothing else, depending on the space and the place, and what happened before and what you got to do afterwards, sometimes we show up a little bit differently. So which version of you are we getting today at the gathering?
Does this work? Yay! I've never held one of these little mics, so bear with me. I am so excited to see so many familiar faces who've returned and so many people who've come for the first time. I want you to feel truly welcome today. Hospitality is, what we're all about. Communities First knows how to put on events, and I'm so proud to have been a volunteer for them for 10 years. Last year at the first gathering, we talked about expanding our circle, and that's really important to kind of widen that circle so we can show up for each other. We talked about how to break down barriers between people of different races and ethnicities and really dug into that. This year, focusing on intergenerational connectedness is something also very important, because if you think about it, if you think about your inner circle, not your family, how many people do you have in your inner circle who are from different generations? It's very difficult, right? Because usually our friends are more friends of convenience. If you're in college, you're friends with college students. If you have young children, you're friends with other families, carting kids everywhere. And if you're retired, chances are you're hanging out with other retired people. So it's just natural, right? So we have to be purposeful in connecting with people across generations, because if there's one thing that I know about diversifying your life, it's that it's truly much richer. We thrive, we are part of community, and it's super important. So we want to hear from these lovely ladies about what it takes to show up for them and for each other, and I hope you get a lot out of it today.
All right, well, we're going to start with our first question. So the first question is going to be for Jodi and Nancy. And the question is, provide a 2025 update. Where are we as women, and what stories can you share about showing up for yourself and showing up for others?
You warned me not to sit on the end. You did, and I did not heed your direction. That's probably part of my generational thing. Gosh, where are we in 2025? I'm frustrated. I'm angry. I feel like lots of us are being targeted and erased for lots of different reasons, whether it be race or age or gender or who we love or any of those things. And so more than just being I'm disheartened and I'm frustrated and I'm really flippin' angry about that, because I have fought so hard my entire life, and I'm looking at this panel, I'm going to hazard a guess that I'm more seasoned than the rest of the folks up here, and I'm not going to let my fight go. I'm not going to let it go, and I want other women to feel the same way.
Tell us who you are.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did not introduce myself. Dang it. I don't follow direction all the time. So I'm Nancy Edwards. I was asked at the last minute yesterday to be part of the panel, so I am absolutely not prepared. And whatever comes out is whatever you all are going to get. And that's how I show up. That is how I show up. And I'm also gonna say that a lot of that is due to the fact that I'm kind of end career, and so and maybe we'll talk a little bit more about that and what it means to be end career and about how that frees you a lot. So I will stop there.
All right, thank you, Nancy. My name is Jodi Ramos, and I'm showing up today as a woman who is not going to feel ashamed that I need to take time for myself and be there for myself. With many other roles, what is the story of women in 2025? Overwhelming. There are so many things that we have to show up for, and as women, I think that we feel guilty when we're not showing up for all of those things, whether it is your career that we know that we have to have in order to provide for our family, as a wife, as a mother, as a friend, as a daughter, as a cousin, as a niece. There are so many things that we have up in the air and spinning. I told my husband the other day, I feel like I'm one of those people that have the spinny plates on sticks, and all the plates are spinning, and I wish for a second they would just stop so I could even identify the plates that were spinning. So I feel like it's overwhelming. So showing up for myself to say, you know what, I'm not going to be ashamed that I need to stop and take care of myself so I can recognize how I can show up for others. Because if I don't know how to show up for myself, I definitely can't help anyone else who is in my life. So really looking at that and not being ashamed that I have to do that and I have to show up for myself, and then showing up for other women to tell them, look, you need to stop and take a moment for yourself. Go and do that right now. Take a moment, and that's how I am trying to show up for other women as well right now.
And I'm glad you said that, because how often are we on a plane and you hear the talk that says, in case of an emergency, please put your mask on before you help others. Now, we ignore it on the plane because we've heard it a million times, but don't ignore it today. Take care of yourself, because we are wired, I think most women are wired to be helpers and to help other people. But if we don't help ourselves, then we have nothing left to give. And I know that some of us have experienced that burnout. Not a good place to be.
And that's a perfect lead into the next question, which we'll address to Sandra and Ashnee. How do you balance the expectations of others with your own needs and desires?
I'll start. I'm Sandra Etherly-Johnson, but today I'm showing up as Sandy. A lot of people don't have an opportunity to hear from Sandy, and she got a whole lot to say. I spent a lot of time basing my work, my time, my life around the expectations of others so that Sandra could be in certain spaces. So when you talk about self-care, today I'm here as Sandy. And so when we talk about the how do I balance those expectations of others with my own needs and desires, a few weeks ago, one of my younger cousins saw something on, I don't know, TikTok or something. And it was a statement where an individual was being judged by a decision that he had made. And what he ultimately ended up saying in response was that we don't share the same conviction. So what makes you upset and cry? What makes you question your worth? What makes you feel as though you're in the right space at the right time? I may not share that. And so one thing that I've been doing over the past several months is living through all of that, right? Recognizing that I may not share the same convictions as you. We may be born in the same family. We may live in the same house. We may go to the same church, but I don't share the same convictions as you. And so one way that I've been able to show up for myself is to stand on that, dig deeper into what I'm convicted about, what makes me who I am, and how Sandy can still come forward in spaces where Sandra is who they expect to be. And they put Ashnee and I on the same question. Good luck, y'all.
Yo, hi everybody. My name is Ashnee, like Ashnee Dunning. And I am actually, I have a little board back there now that tells people what I do, because folks always wonder what I do, right? And I'm a Tommy. Like, I look like I have a job, but no one knows what it is. I am a social entrepreneur, so I am always working to build generational wealth and businesses in the interest of community. We are working to build equitable systems and discourage biased practices and behaviors. And in the titles that I wear now, before I retire December 31st of 2029, I serve as the CEO of the Power Initiative, which is a social impact agency, and as the executive director of the Flint Freedom Schools Collaborative. That's a community initiative. And if you want to know more about me and what I do, that beautiful board back there, I think it says pretty clearly. You can even schedule a brain bounce with me if you want to. Now, in terms of this question, how do you balance the expectations of others with your own needs and desires? So there are a few things that I do. And really a lot of it evolved out of I was in the postpartum trenches. I was still probably in the trenches last time I was with you all here last year. I just started liking my son, right? I always loved him. I just started liking him. And so out of that, out of going to therapy, out of taking Zoloft, out of doing all the things that I needed to do to get myself together, I set some very clear boundaries. I create holidays. I share expectations. I'm one of those millennial mothers that has no shame about my expectation of our village to show up for me and my son, I am the first woman in my lineage, right? I am the daughter of Michelle Young, the granddaughter of Stavella Young, the great-granddaughter of Mariella March. And of my entire lineage and all the women that I know in my family, I am the first to not be physically, sexually, emotionally abused in some way or fashion, right? So I think that it takes a village. And so I do things like I create holidays, okay, chillaways. For the last few months, I've taken myself on a bi-monthly me retreat. I've set expectations with my husband to know that when I'm going, I don't care what you got to do, brother, you got to figure this out, you know? And I think really just like I only do meetings 3 days a week, maybe. I don't wake up to an alarm clock. I'm here because I love Essence. Otherwise, I'd probably be in a shell somewhere not talking to anyone. So how do I balance my needs with the needs of others? Like, I manage folks' expectations of me. I'm going to do what I want to do. I feel like I have the capacity to do it. Our businesses are phenomenal, and we have teams, you know, of people who do the things, and I would refer you to my beautiful team to handle the things that you might need done urgently. Did I answer the question? Wonderful.
All right, so if you'll notice anything about the folks that we have with us today, they are who they are. And I will tell you that they are not putting on a show for us today. This is who you get if you call them in the afternoon, in the morning. You know, this is what you get. So we appreciate you being very genuine and sharing with us. So our next question is going to be for Angela. How can we create spaces where women from different age groups feel safe and empowered to share their challenges and successes?
It's good? Oh, I love this question. So hi, everybody. My name is Angela Hood. How am I showing up today? So I am showing up as Angelica. And if you know me, you know what that means, right? So get ready, here we go. And so what that means is I give myself permission to show up authentically without apology, right? And so that means I'm not for everyone, and I'm okay with that. Because I think when we talk about what it means to create space, that means that we're intentional about not requiring people to conform to be accepted. So how do we create a room where diversity of thought, I'm not talking policy, I'm talking about an atmosphere that cannot be regulated or mandated. Because in our humanity, I can entertain your perspective without thinking that it attacks my own. How do we do that, right? And the first way we do that is you have to get over yourself. Because I'm not that wonderful. I'm great, don't get me wrong. I'll tell you in a minute, Psalms, right? I'm a preacher by nature. I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, but I am not so wonderful that in my wonder, I think you're not wonderful also, right? So what I'm talking about is taking a stance where we have a sense of cultural humility, that I can see the divinity in the sister sitting across from me who looks nothing like me, younger, older, different economic status, different background, different values, different beliefs, but I can still see her divinity. And we can share a meal, we can break bread, we can disagree, and there be no animosity. There can still be kindness and humanity and tenderness and empathy and sympathy. So how do we create those spaces? First of all, we have to be those spaces. Because when we are those spaces, we bring it in the room. And when the room won't tolerate it, we say something about it. And sometimes that means that we are not well received. So when I said I'm Angelica, right? I've had to leave some spaces that were not for me. Because when the attitude or the environment is not conducive for my divinity, I have to make a decision, individually and collectively. Do you get the gifts that I bring or not? And that is a choice that if you're not ready to receive them, I have to be okay with walking away, because I can't let being in the room deplete me. And when I say being in the room could be the relationship, it could be the job, it could be the church. Don't get me started. It could be any number of these things. But you have to make a decision. Is being in this place more important than being me? What will I give to be in this space? Because many of us as women, we've been taught and told that your silence, your body, and your participation is for sale. And it costs your identity. So I'm going to just leave it there. How do we create the spaces? First and foremost, we have to be the space. That means you have to tap into your divinity inside of you. You have to hold on to it relentlessly, and you have to pull those other women that have not seen it in themselves to look in the mirror in your eyes and see the space within themselves also.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. All right, let's go to Eleni next and get you into the conversation. This is a two-part question, so feel free to answer which parts you want. What is a piece of advice you'd give to younger women about navigating challenges in their careers, relationships, or personal lives? And what would you say to older women about embracing change and growth? Now, it's interesting to get your perspective on either or both or any of that.
Yeah. Hello. Can you hear me? Hi. My name is Eleni. Hi. My identity and who I'm showing up as today kind of ties into that question of, what advice do I give to the younger generation of who to show up as? So today, I think in my young age, I think my habit to be brash, to be impatient, to be loud is more tolerated. So I count myself very lucky in that fact that I am allowed is a stretch, but I am allowed to speak my mind, and I'm allowed to, hurry things along because that's what I want to do. And it's appreciated. I think that those characteristics kind of lose their shine as women get older. I think with the women that want to get stuff done are seen as too bossy, as too brash, as too mean. And I think the way and the age that I am, it's kind of like, oh, she's still young, she's allowed to do that. So I count myself lucky there. I don't care if it's condescending or anything like that. I show up as someone that's loud and someone who wants to get stuff done. I have a couple different identities. I have a couple different bubbles in which I function. One is the corporate identity that I have. I do the marketing here at CFI. I am also an educator. I'm back in school to become a full-time educator, but right now I teach marching band and drumline at Grand Blanc High School, and that I have balanced those two identities, and I have done my darndest to make them align, because I have found that having those separate identities and making myself a different person is exhausting. It's exhausting, and it's not who I am. And bless my high schoolers, bless my teacher identity, because it's taught me to be loud and to be undeniable and to believe that I control a room and to have faith in myself. So that has kind of led into my corporate identity and the way I function in the workspace. And that's the advice I give to younger people. Don't be undeniable. Be undeniable and be loud and be okay with it. And of course it's uncomfortable. Oh my gosh. I've had such uncomfortable, I don't work with any other women at school. Every other person on the staff of the 15 of us are men. And I'm the only woman. So I look around a room in a staff meeting, and it's a bunch of boys and men. And they're younger than me, some of them. Some of them are older. But these young boys, they speak up, and it's like, why are you allowed to say all these things? And the minute I speak up, it's, what are you talking about? Anyways, that was just a side tangent. But if I wouldn't allow myself to be loud, I wouldn't be heard. So it's a battle, and it's uncomfortable, and it's exhausting. But at the end of the day, I know that's what fulfills me. If I were to be malleable and pliable and a pushover, that wouldn't be who I am, So I want young women, and again, bless my high schoolers, because that's what I get to teach my young women. The girls that look up to me is just be loud, make yourself heard, no matter what. So yeah, that's what I have.
Alrighty, so the next question is, how can we overcome generational divides and stereotypes that sometimes exist between women of different ages? And this question is going to be for Jodi and Angela.
It's funny. This question came. All right, there. Okay. This question came about. I actually just started doing some presentations on how to cross intergenerational differences in workplaces. So when this question came about, I'm like, wow, that the world just kind of goes full circle with those things. The first thing that is important is to acknowledge that there's differences, right? To see that those differences are there, to know that I might be looking at someone who's either older or younger than me with some sort of bias coming into it as well, too, and recognizing that in myself. I might look at an Eleni like, oh my gosh, her patience is gonna be about this short. And no, you know what? I'm really just judging her because of her age. I need to stop and check that in myself to see what am I bringing into the room. And then once I'm able to acknowledge that in myself, appreciate those differences and say, okay, I might have, this strength in my generation, and Eleni might have this other one. How can we build those together with our strengths to come up with our ultimate goal? But also to be aware of the fact that in a generation, there's different experiences that shape and mold how you view the workplace, right? So someone, I'm Gen X, you go to work and you're fine with taking work home, and that's just kind of what you do. But then you have a millennial who, and we can really relate to this in our area, who saw their parents, their grandparents do those things and put all of that time and effort into their jobs, into their work, to then just turn around and have it all taken away, right? We saw that with GM here in the Flint area. Everything was taken away from them, their livelihood, their pension, their homes, everything. So now they have a different perspective of where they put their loyalty to in their workplace. And for me to sit back and acknowledge that and look at that and say, how do I then take that perspective and join it with my perspective, and we can still come up with those outcomes of what we want to do. So really sitting back, first checking myself, and then what are those experiences that that generation is bringing into the workplace so we can still work towards our ultimate goals.
Jodi was saying about you have to interrupt your own biases first, because they're so internally woven that many times we just accept them without interruption. So for me, a key thing is seeking to understand versus to be understood. And so when I'm working with someone else, especially across generations, it's me having an understanding of what matters to them and why they've come to the work. Each of us every day, we're interacting in different spaces, but there's a reason why you find yourself doing the work that you're doing. And so to understand the purpose behind the work first, and then in that connection, we can build upon how we're going to do the work together. And that might look different depending on your workload, or the way you approach work. If your preference of meeting, this is something I see especially recently post-COVID, I'm in some settings with some folks that are quite a bit older, and they prefer in person. They want to be in person at the meeting. And the same content, the same work can be developed in a virtual space. And that would have been my preference. But it's how do I connect with the people I'm working with so that they get what they need from the interaction as we're doing the work. So sometimes it's putting my preferences on the back burner and learning to understand the people I'm working with so that we can develop an incredible product at the end of it. More than anything, I'll go back to what we were speaking of before, though. It's how do we meet people in their humanity? And do we assume that because a person shows up a certain way, that means that person is, not versed in technology or not open to change or open to new methods or ideas? I find that the greatest lessons I've ever learned, they happen on the floor. So I'm a grandgie. I have 2 grandsons that are 6, just turned 7 and 3. And the way these children have taught me, I'm in a doctorate program at Michigan State. But the things that these toddlers have taught me, you could not pay a tuition to learn. And so sometimes what we think is learning, and learning is my superpower. What we think is learning is really not the most important lessons. So when we're working with people, are we sitting with them really in this sacred space of exchanging thoughts and ideas in a way that they can leave an impression on your heart that will shape the way you see the rest of the world? And if you're going to work with people and you're not creating that space for that, you're missing something. Because there's an exchange that's supposed to happen that's bigger than the work. We talk about synergy, right? You give, I give, and then together the motion, takes off, velocity, whatever. But there's an exchange that happened that's bigger than what you see in the room when we truly make a connection, when we form a relationship, and when we build a bond. And that's why you see the women in this room and on this panel, because we've had those interactions at different times, and they've transcended however I met you originally. Ashnee was my Bible study student in church years ago. But the interaction I had with her transcended the place that I met her, and the work that we've done together has transcended several organizations. And the impact, it can't be contained in any of those organizations because it's a communal impact. And so that's what I'm saying. I could have said, oh, this is the little girl I taught in Bible study. What's she going to teach me? She can teach you a lot if you open your heart and your mind to learn from her. And just like the people that are around you now, right? So I would say keep your heart open, keep your mind open.
Can you hear me? All right, so now we're going to transition to Sandra or Sandy, whichever one you want. Okay. How do you think women's support systems differ across generations? Okay, and what can we learn from each other to strengthen those systems?
That's good. And I'm going to be as brief as Sandy can be. Ashnee isn't just sitting here by chance, right? And to hear Angela refer to how she and Ashnee's relationship began and where it is today. Never told Ashnee this. When she watched her when she was pregnant, I watched her do all the things, everything. But what was most impressive generationally for me was a day she showed up at a board meeting with the baby. And I had to accept the fact that I am on the older end of Generation X. That just dawned on me a couple months ago, so cut me some grace with that. And then also someone quite younger than myself referred to me as an OG. And I was like, dang, like, when did I get to be the OG, right? I didn't realize that I had become the OG, right, of the peeps. But when I saw Ashnee come into that board meeting with her baby unapologetically, I'm talking playpen, dinner table, bag, all the things that you need to care for your child, right? And I'm watching this young entrepreneur come into this space commanding attention. And no attention was being taken away from the baby. And my elder Gen X mind said, dang, when I was scared to take my daughter to class with me as a non-traditional student. Dang, I remember quitting that job because I couldn't work around and afford the child care that I needed at the time. Dang, I would have never went there with my kid, let alone show up in this space and take charge. So when you think about how we can show up and support one another generationally, it's recognizing from whence you came, recognizing those opportunities that you didn't have, watching it flourish and grow in someone else and supporting them in that space. When Ashnee would come into that board, all us old ladies, we was running. Who got the bottle? Who can hold a baby? And couldn't nobody hold a baby because it was germs and it was a whole thing, and she knows that. But I'm saying that to say, when our younger women come into these spaces in your church, in your work, in your sister circle, you got to first understand who you are. I had to realize that I was from an older, traditional, generational mindset where women with children couldn't even work, let alone bring them into the workplace. Once I was able to toss that out the way, and again, she never knew that, I have been singing her praises and encouraging other young women to walk in the fullness of who they are. So you show up for other women generationally by first recognizing who you are. And then secondly, embracing them for who you are. I took a 90-year-old woman on a camping trip. You understand what I'm saying? For a week. No, she wasn't my auntie. She ain't my cousin. Just an older woman who I love so much. My 30 and 40-year-old friends didn't understand why was she there. My mama didn't understand why she was there. But it's showing up and realizing who they are, who you are first, and how you can be a constant presence and uplifter of them and find what they need and tap into that.
And when you shared that, it reminded me, so I used to work at GM a long time ago, and I was working on my thesis project, and I had a woman who was supposed to be my mentor and supervisor, and she just kept making stuff difficult for me, and I couldn't figure out why. And one day I just asked her, I said, do you have a problem with me? What's going on? What's happening? And she said, well, it was hard for me, so I'm gonna make sure it's hard for you. So that you appreciate, and she went on this tangent, and I just couldn't believe it. So to hear you say what you say, to recognize that you have the opportunity to pour into people, to younger women's lives in a way that supports who they are, and where they're going, right, is a beautiful thing. And it's just a reminder to all of us that, when you talk about taking the kids with you, both of my kids are here. I got a playroom set up for them in the office over there. And the 6-year-old is sitting here and taking notes. I don't know what the notes say, but she's sitting here taking notes and is able to function in this environment because she has come with us so many different places. And that's the thing. We can't say kids don't know how to behave if you never take them anywhere. Sometimes we have to be the example, and we have to put them in places and spaces so that they can learn how to conduct themselves. And if they don't behave, what do? We figure it out. We figure it out. All right, so this is going to be the last question that's directed at individual panelists, and then we have one quick rapid-fire question, okay, after that. Okay, so this one is going to be for Ashnee. Did he cut my mic off? Okay. This one is going to be for Ashnee and Nancy. What actions can women take to create a more inclusive and intergenerational network of support in both personal and professional spaces?
You're going to point at me. Okay. I was thinking about this because I'm clearly in that situation. I'm still working, even though, and this is another whole story, age discrimination complaint that I won. And so I didn't retire when it was expected of me. And that was a fight we could talk about. But I'm in a space where I have a lot of younger women that I work with. And so the challenge, and the challenge that I have is this. I have a lot of wisdom because I'm seasoned. And I have a lot of experience. I've been doing what I've been doing for 24 plus years here in Genesee County. I know a lot of people. I know a lot of the way the systems work. I have all of this knowledge. And so the balance that I always try to figure out is how much of that do I share and still leave space for new ideas, new directions, the younger folks' ideas, because I don't know it all. And so it literally remind myself on a daily basis, do I need to weigh in on this? Or do I be quiet and then offer maybe something after the fact? How much do I direct? How much do I listen? Always listen and learn. But I literally have this battle every single day as I near the end of my career. I don't want to take all the knowledge with me. So how do I share that in a way that honors what the new ideas and the new energy, but still gives people the benefit of what I have? And so that it's a tightrope. And I do really well some days, and some days I totally suck at that. I get that. Thank you. And and the other thing, I never thought of myself as a mentor or a person. Like I got my head down, I do the work, I know what needs to get done, I'm in the spaces where I need to be, I'm pushing, I'm using the resources that I have access to because of who I am and what I know and how long I've been around and all of that. And I will never forget, I don't remember exactly when it was, but the first time that a woman referred to me as a mentor, I was like, what? Because I don't see myself like that. And so again, just like not really knowing where you fit and then trying to figure out how to get everything done and trying to be supportive and try to be loving and trying to be kind and also trying to be hard when you need to, not intentionally making people miserable, but just making sure that that you are there for whatever people need and women need.
I first have to just acknowledge Nancy as of when I met Nancy, she was a bad mama jamma, and I recognized it immediately. And so for her to say that, like, I'm going to retire soon, but I stood 10 toes down to say, I'm going to retire when I'm ready. Y'all not going to push me out because she is sharp. She still got it. I just want y'all to give her just one more hand, just for Nancy. Okay. So the question, what actions can women take to create a more inclusive and intergenerational network of support in both personal and professional spaces? So for me, I have a personal theory of change. Build equitable systems, discourage biased practices and behaviors. Every business, anything in community that I engage in is around that personal theory of change. I don't necessarily like personal and professional in that way. And so I'll start with saying that in terms of what it is we can do, I've heard it alluded to a lot on this panel, but spend more time thinking about and reflecting on our superpowers, our interests, our vision for how we desire to spend our time and our capacity than we do trying to fit into a box that someone else created for us, right? And once we have that understanding of ourselves, right, it gives us more understanding of how it is that we can show up for other people. It allows us to inventory our power, our authority, and our resources, and then we can be strategic and intentional about how we disseminate or allocate or how we show up. So an example is, I said I would retire December 31, 2029. That'll probably put me right around 40. Y'all think I'm playing, but I'm very serious. One of our organizations, the nonprofit, and the board is already on board. What's cool is I have replacements, and after me, none of my team members will have to lead 2 companies at the same time. And these real companies brought in just over $700,000 last year. And our primary fundraiser was a senior at Spelman College who raised over $420,000 for our nonprofit. And I hired her straight out of college at 60 bands plus. Kayla says I'm supposed to stop telling her business, but I told y'all that now, okay? She make more money than me. And so looking at that, right, and how we can show up and build these intergenerational things. I have 2 apprentices. They were 3-year programs, right? I found them, I've poured into them, they've poured into me. There are pros and cons of working with me, but the pro is you get a month off for Christmas. I don't need no PTO. You get paid the same amount. You get your time off. The pro is my team does not work 9 to 5. I frankly don't care where it is you work from or what time it is that you work in, as long as the things get done in excellence, and I have a quite high standard for excellence, right? The pro is when I retire December 31 of 2029, Marquetta McKay Hall will become the executive director of the Flint Freedom Schools Collaborative, of which she currently serves as the program director, of which prior to that she was a site coordinator, of which prior to that she was a learning facilitator. And before I brought her on full time between both of our companies, one is the program director and one is the director of external relations, she was an educator at Kearsley School, and I went and got her. Call me Miss Steal Your Girl. I'd be like, how they treat you over there? What they paying you? How much I got to raise to be able to afford you, right? Same thing with Kayla. She will become the CEO of the Power Initiative. We have high school students, right? Cassidy Town Boone, who is the president at Carmen Ainsworth High School now. She is graduating 2 years ahead of time because she's brilliant, who's been in Freedom School since she was in the 2nd grade. She is ready to take my job. We have more scholars who are ready to take my job. Her mom is on our board right now. We have 3 out of 14 Freedom School scholars in the Grand Blanc District spelling bees. And if they Freedom School scholars, most of them is little black kids. We got all type of kids, but most of them little black and brown kids. 3 out of 14 in a predominantly white district came from Freedom Schools. And these young people, these high schoolers, these middle schoolers, these elementary, we having conversations with them right now for them to take our jobs. And so when we talk about intergenerational wealth and networking, I'm a wrap up what I'm saying. Like, we make revolution real romantic. That's my mom. Hi, Mom. I did not expect her. She peopled out. I got this Kellogg fellowship, and she stayed with my baby all in Detroit all last week without any reserve. She didn't have no backup. She just allowed me to shoot all the shots. So thank you for being here, Mom. But when we talk about intergenerational network and development, we romanticize revolution. It's not romantic. When I fundraise, when I'm shooting these shots, when we go into these these multi-billion-dollar spaces, these multi-million-dollar spaces, and little old Ashnee from the north side of Flint, who was born to a brilliant woman. She was young and she was brilliant. And they tell me I'm not supposed to be there. I shoot these shots and I tell them it's a name on it. Every single dollar I'm raising, it's a name on it. I can tell you exactly who is next up to be hired full-time to our company. I could tell you. It's a name on it. So when you think about your authority, your power, when we think about intergenerational networks, it's not rocket science. Your assets, you have value. What are your assets? And how can you be intentional about disseminating them to the very people we say we care about, the young people? Shout out to my sorors of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated who are out in here doing the work every day. Woo, woo. I'm done.
And that's what you get. So appreciate each of you. So as our wrap-up question for the panel, you get 20 seconds or less just to tell us. She said forget it. Sandy can't do it. All right, Sandra, Sandra can do it. Just to tell us one way, really, really quickly, as we're going to transition into one of our breakouts, tell us one way that you show up for yourself.
I've learned to appreciate quiet time. Wake up early in the morning by myself. Just me. Period.
Ashnee, how do you show up for yourself? 20 seconds or less.
I do what I want.
Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, I just let myself be selfish. I don't care. And I'm allowed to say I don't care. Sorry. People, I say I don't care, and they're like, you can't say that. Okay. I don't care.
I'm an advocate for getting up early. I have to hear myself before I hear the voices of the world. So 5:30 a.m., I'm up, I'm praying, I'm reading something, I'm meditating. And in this phase of my life, I've learned how to take a nap. Come on. I have, and it's a game changer, right? So, because if you really trust and have faith that things will work out, I think about this story, and I'm not going to preach, but Jesus on the ship, and there was a storm, and all this stuff was going on, and the disciples was like, hey, he's asleep, right? He is asleep. And I'm like, there's a lesson in taking a nap. So I take naps.
I knew the preacher couldn't do it. 20 seconds.
Really making sure that I schedule my time to take care of myself, because if I don't make that an important part of my life, I am not going to take the time to do it. So taking the time to make sure I'm scheduling my biweekly therapy, that I can just talk to somebody just to talk to somebody, because it's just nice to talk to somebody, right? To biweekly go get my nails done, to make sure that I am taking my bath and have my computer set up and I'm watching my movie while I'm taking a bath, unashamedly, but making sure that I'm scheduling that time, because if I don't, I won't get to it. So I have to be intentional about it.
Yes.
Oh, geez. Honestly? So the one thing that I realized about myself, which not too long ago, well, within the last couple of years, is that I'm actually an introvert. I don't present that way. And people, they're like, what? No, you're not. But I am. I am an introvert. I put it all out there during the workday, and then when I am done with work, I'm done. And I like to play stupid games on my phone.
That's
I
all
mean,
valid.
stupid. Like, I gamble on my phone, not for real money. But I am literally a billionaire right now on my phone.
Oh, how I wish I had the number for the gambling hotline. All right. All right, so did you enjoy the panel? Yes. I think we had the right folks on this panel.